Hello folks, it's me once again, your local bibliotech nerd, and we are back with Superman, the Last Son of Krypton, Part 2. Today will be the finale of the story, as it's a one graphic novel story arc, unlike the previous story of Batman Hush, which had 2 graphic novels. Now a quick reminder that on Friday it will be Vintage Friday, and I shall be doing Superman number 1, published in July 1939. And next week I shall be starting on the Tower of Babel. But for now, let's get into the story. So, a quick recap that in the previous video, a strange craft had crashed into Metropolis, bringing with it a small Kryptonian boy. Not long after, Zod, his second-in-command Ursa, and his ally Non had followed from the Phantom Zone. After a tough fight, Zod had unleashed more beings from the zone, and in the process of weakening Superman, he managed to trap Clark in the Phantom Zone, cutting him off from defending Earth. Short and sweet, let's get into summarizing this week's story. Chapter 3. Pain, Agony, Suffering. Superman is helpless in the Phantom Zone, bombarded by a maddening amount of visions from back on Earth. Various members of the Justice League can be seen fighting Kryptonians, but to no avail. They stand no chance against them. Superman would have gone insane if it wasn't for Mon-El, the Daxamite friend he had to trap in the Phantom Zone to save from lead poisoning. Zod's escape plan is revealed by his Phantom friend, but the way out is blocked by the individual known as Dev-M. Only by Mon-El's intervention would Superman be able to return to Metropolis. It seems some time has passed in Metropolis, for it was now a cold and dark place. The happiness had been drained under the tyranny of Zod's minions. Superman knew that only with the help of Lex Luthor would he be able to defeat General Zod. Luthor, though, had already gathered his own team to wage war on the Kryptonians. It was Superman who would be going along the ride, and not the other way around. Chapter 4. Lex Luthor had prepared himself to kill Kryptonians for a very long time. He had built a variety of weapons that would help him to incapacitate and kill in all manner of ways. Back in Metropolis at the moment, humanity would try one last-ditched effort to take back the city. This, though, would be to no avail against the superpowered beings. Only the intervention of Superman and his new team, Bizarro, Parasite, and Metallo, would hope to stand any chance. Their new equipment provided by Luthor would cause chaos among the Kryptonians, as they would now face an enemy who could easily kill them. Luthor himself would sneak into the fortress, while the others were there to distract the rest of the enemy. Superman, on the other hand, had gone to free the prisoners in the new fortress in downtown Metropolis. The Justice League would now be able to join the fray once again. The reason for this whole distraction was, of course, for the secret plan Luthor had created. With some alterations, he would reverse the gateway into the Phantom Zone, which would then suck everyone into it that had previously come into contact. This included both Chris and Superman. In the end, though, Chris would sacrifice himself and fly into the portal to close it behind all the Kryptonians that were now back once again in the prison. This was a very hard blow to Superman, to lose the young, adopted son, Christopher Kent. Only with a few wrap-up pages, here ends the story of Superman, Last Son of Krypton. This, of course, isn't the end of the graphic novel, as we get an extra little addition from Superman Annual number 13, called The Best Day, which was published in November 2007. As a tie-in to The Last Son of Krypton, The Best Day sees Superman take Chris Kent and his extended family for a trip to a strange alien world. Now I must say, The Best Day is a feast of colour and art for the eyes. No major, intense plotline, just a simple picnic with a family on an alien world, of course. We get a bit of more world building with Supergirl wanting to create some sort of Kryptonian dish and having to also build on site a special type of fire oven. We also get a glimpse of Superman fishing with his old pa, Jonathan Kent, and seeming to have a blast of a time. Short and sweet, and definitely a great comic to cement the attachment of Superman towards Chris Kent and of course the rest of his family. But now it's time to move on to the full opinion piece of the whole story, and I will also include bits and bobs from the previous video just to kind of make a well-rounded opinion piece. Now, the first point that I want to talk about, I'm not entirely sure if it has a specific label or not, but it has to do with the fact that Superman is an alien. He is also the last of his kind as far as he knows. Well, we do have Supergirl as well, but that is also a recent revelation in this specific storyline. He is very far away from what used to be his homeland. He, of course, no longer has his biological parents, so although he was grown up and raised in a wholesome family setting, there is still a disconnect, I would argue, that we really see highlighted in the fact that when Chris lands in Metropolis, it is a huge kind of defining, world-shattering just for Superman, but not in the physical sense, but in the more philosophical or emotional sense. We see this, of course, in the fact that he is so willing to adopt Chris, even though he does not know the kid. I'm sure there is hundreds of other orphans around Metropolis, but he has a connection that has been tapped into because Chris is from Krypton and he's a Kryptonian. The anger that he shows when he confronts the metahuman task force, I can't remember what it's called, but the one that he goes to the Pentagon to, we definitely see a new Clark affected by Chris in a way that we haven't quite seen him yet up to this point, I would say, in such a specific state. He's reverted back into a tribal state because of his disconnect to Earth. Even though he's been, raised well in a loving family, there is still that little gap that is, highlighted pretty well here in his reaction towards humanity when it comes to protecting this Kryptonian boy that he's only just met. Do let me know your thoughts on this, if you think, I am talking about something here, or am I just putting too much onto the story? In general, though, the plot is pretty easy enough to follow and straightforward. Probably the only criticism I would have is the finale, in terms of it wasn't quite as exciting as you may expect. Although the sacrifice of Chris was supposed to be potentially an emotional scene, I don't know, it's just the fact that you had, they had used such powerful adversaries like Zod, and it was just a simple fly in, or switch to the gate and then fly in, and then kablamo, it's all done. I don't know, just it didn't quite hit the mark in terms of great endings. Now, moving on to the art. Again, I would say it's fairly decent, although I'm still going to keep the same criticism from the last video. I do think there's some consistency problems where characters sometimes don't look the same as they did a few pages back in similar poses, or one could probably say that the composition of their faces genuinely sometimes made him look like different characters. And then the fact that in some panels one character may look extremely young, yet a few pages later the composition of their face makes them look extremely old. I definitely don't think there was a consistent drawing in, if that makes sense. Other than that, I would say that the art was pretty satisfactory. Probably not as a big of a compliment towards the story as Batman Hush was, but I definitely think it did a decent enough job. Now that wraps up the opinion piece for both the story and the art, Please let me know what you think. Do you agree with some of my points? Maybe I blabbered a bit too much and put too much meaning behind the story. So please let me know what you think. Don't forget to subscribe. Don't forget to like. And on Friday will be Vintage Friday with Superman #1. And then next week I shall start on the Tower of Babel. So until then, I will see you in the next video. Thanks for watching.